What's up, Rockstars? Welcome back to the Rockstarflipper YouTube channel. And today I'm going to talk about exactly what the title above says. How I sold $1 million in 1 year in cell phones, smartphones. It's true. It's 100% true. And the reason why I quit, why I don't sell cell phones anymore. Occasionally I will sell the odd off 1 or 2 phones, but I do not sell them anywhere near what I used to do. And a lot of people are gonna say that it had something to do with the lawsuit, which I've done a video on. If you haven't seen that video, you can check it out down below. But it actually has nothing to do with that lawsuit. That lawsuit was a reason why I don't sell cell phones anymore. It was not the reason. It had nothing to do with why I quit. And prior to the lawsuit, I was already in the process of quitting cell phones. So what I want to do is I want to go over to my computer screen and I'm going to show you guys a little bit of the cell phone market, how you can buy cell phones, how you can profit on them, how you can sell them, all the ups and positives of the cell phone market. And then I'm going to talk about all of the downs and the negatives, which led me to quit a very profitable side of reselling. So on $1 million in sales, to give you guys an idea, because no one likes just big flashy numbers, we did $300,000 in profit. We were clean clear 30% across the board. And I did it by myself for a while. I had a partner later and we did even bigger numbers. But I want to show you guys all of the details of that company over on my computer, and then I'll come back here and I'll talk to you guys about why I don't do it anymore and why all that money, and no matter how much profit it was and how much money you make, sometimes the money is not worth the risk. You always hear risk and reward. Well, sometimes the risk just isn't worth it. Okay, so we are on my computer screen and I've gone to Craigslist here in my local Tampa area and opened up the cell phone section right under the for sale cell phones. And there are 2,500 plus listings. And just today alone, there's over 300 listings of cell phones, and there was probably more. So anyways, I scrolled down and I found this iPhone 7 Plus 120 gig T-Mobile unlocked. Now you got to be careful about the word unlocked because everyone thinks their phone's unlocked and most people don't even know what the word unlocked means. Unlocked essentially means the phone will work with any carrier across the country or pretty much across the world. It used to just be GSM, but it's for all of them. Unlocking requires a very sophisticated process. It's not too terribly hard if you know what you're doing, but if you don't even know what the word means, you wouldn't even know what to put. Now, the reason people go ahead and just throw the word unlocked onto everything is because they know the word unlocked immediately means they'll get more money, because having a phone unlocked that'll work on different services and across the country makes the phone more valuable. A lot of people mistake the word unlocked for meaning that it doesn't have a password or an iCloud on it. That just means it's clear. That doesn't mean that it's unlocked. Unlocked means something totally different. So anyways, people shove that word in there to make it seem like it's worth more money. But if it's not truly unlocked, then you have to be careful. And you just have to treat it as the normal carrier, T-Mobile. So anyways, they're asking $525. They're in Brandon, Florida, which is just around the corner from me. So I came over here to 128 gig iPhone 7 Pluses for T-Mobile, and most of them are selling in the high fives. There's some that fetched, $750, $580, $560, $570, $570. So assuming we're going to get about $575 to $800 or $600 on this, at $525, you're not even making money. You're going to lose money because remember, the fees on a $600 sale are $60, 10%. Even with a discount, they're going to be $54. So you're left at $546. Now you've got PayPal fees that are going to be like $10. That's $536, and then you got to ship it with insurance and tracking and all that. You're at like $525, $600 to break even. So in order to make money, we can't just offer them $500. You can't buy a phone for $500 to make $25. You got to buy that phone somewhere around like $350 to $400. Now they're not probably going to do it for in the threes, but $400 cash, you offer it, and typically what will happen is they'll say no. I'm not selling it that low. I'll give it to you for $5. You'll say, listen, $400's my offer. Take it or leave it. And they'll say no, and they'll call you back a day or two later or a couple hours later and say, fine, $450. And you'll say, nope, $400. And then stick to your guns because these people are desperate. They're on Craigslist. They need cash. Trust me, stick to your guns. And lowball them if you have to. And you'll buy it for $400. You'll list it up. Maybe you sell it for $575. You net, $510, $520. And all of a sudden you made $100, $120 on one item, and one profitable item, and your eBay sales are instantly $600 for the day. Problem with that is you're spending $400, $500 on one item. Now this is a really high-end phone. It's a 7 Plus, so it is expensive, but you are spending a lot of money. So let's go back and look at some of the other listings. So they have an iPhone SE 64 for $200. Almost every single phone that's on here will be overpriced. Here you go. Here's a T-Mobile unlocked iPhone X 64 gig for $1,250. It's cheaper than that retail. It's only $10.99, sealed. $1,200 or $50 are best offers. So this person's crazy. I mean, they'll never sell this, and they'll realize it, and they'll drop the price to 11 and then 10. The way to make money on Craigslist or Facebook with phones is not by going through and finding people selling phones. It's by putting your own ad up. Your own advertisement that says, I buy phones, cash for phones. If you type that in, cash for phones, you will see people that buy phones. Look, cash for new and used phones. Here you go. Bang. You need cash, I need phones. Here you go. We buy phones. I mean, all over the place, all kinds of phones. Look, an iPhone X unlocked, $1,400. You can't find stuff for sale cheap enough, but if you advertise, you'll start getting 10, 20, 30 calls a day, 40 calls, texts a day. So make sure you use a phone that's not your normal number. Don't give that real number out. And then you just lowball every one of them. They call in, I'll give you $350 for that phone. I'll give you $350. And 9 out of 10 of them are going to say no, but 1 or 2 are going to say yes. And that's how the market works. And then over the course of time, you will build up relationships where people will call you back. The next time they get a phone, they won't even toss it online. They'll just call you, they'll ask what you're paying, and that's it. The thing that happened in the Florida market was there ended up being like 800 people trying to say, I buy phones. And most of them literally had enough cash to buy one phone. And they would undercut you over like $3. They would buy a phone just to make like a $3 profit just to get the business because it's all they could do. And there was so much back and forth that the regular sellers and resellers and hustlers figured out that they could just call me and say, what do you pay? And I would say 100, and they'd call the next guy and say, well, he offered 100, give me 105. And then when he said 105, they'd come back to me and say, he said 105, give me 110. And they would just play us like a fiddle back and forth, knowing that we wanted the business. So keep all this in mind when you start working these local markets, that it is a game to these people. And you've got to stick to your guns, make an offer. If you buy it, great. If you don't, you don't. But like I've said from the start of this video, I don't recommend selling phones. Don't get into this market, but there is a lot of money. So if you do it safely and do it carefully and do it, use your brain, use your common sense, and use your gut. But that's how the cell phone market works. You can do the same thing on Facebook and the marketplaces and the yard sales, the yard sale groups. You could do it on OfferUp. You can do it on Let Go. You can do it pretty much anywhere you can make a local classified advertisement saying I buy phones will get you a ton of traffic. Every person needs a phone. Every person wants a phone. Every person wants money for their phone. And you will just instantly get calls because you're not trying to sell anyone something. You're trying to give them money. And trust me, it works. Okay, so now that you guys see how the cell phone market works and how you can make so much money and why it's so attractive and so alluring to drag yourself into that kind of market. And this kind of goes for cell phones as the number one because they are the highest risk item and they're the most common. You could kind of put tablets into this category and other, popular electronics. Typically video game systems will be tamer and easier, which is why I still sell them a lot. Tablets, you have to be a little careful. Nothing like the cell phone market. So let's talk about the downsides to it. So the lawsuit was just a one-off and it's not going to happen to most people, but it is out there. So it's something you have to think about. Second reason is just risk. Cell phones are the number one fraud item and risk and return item on eBay, hands down, bar none, period. They're bigger than Louis Vuitton or Rolex or any of that. People claim, stolen phones and they want to return the phone for any old blemish or any old scratch. People try to play the switcheroos where they went out on Craigslist and they bought a stolen cell phone and now they're stuck with it. So they go on eBay and they buy yours, same exact model, same exact everything, and then they try switching it up. It's a huge, highly frauded, highly risked item. People can steal and clone your ESN or IMEI. That's this phone's unique identifier. They can steal that number. Once they get the phone from you, they write down the serial number, they clone it to another phone, and now they've got a good phone, and they send you yours back that's now bad. They could buy your phone and claim that it was stolen all along and get your account shut down. If they call eBay and say that you sold them a stolen item, I mean, it is really bad. Now, on top of all that, where it wouldn't be your fault, it is possible to go out in a local market and buy a phone from somebody, and you call it in and it's not stolen, you buy it, and 10 minutes after you've bought it and handed them their $200 in cash, they drive off, they call the company, they report it stolen, they get sent a new one from insurance, and now the phone you're in possession of is stolen, you can't sell it, and worse off, if you don't find out, you don't know until you mail it to the customer that bought it from you on eBay, and now you've got a customer that you shipped a stolen phone to. Even though you bought it and you might have a bill of sale, you might have all that, it really does you no good, because the customer on the other end of the phone is out their money, or on the other end of eBay is out their money and out their phone. They're gonna get a refund, they're gonna get it returned, and eBay is not going to be happy. They don't care what happened on your end. It's your word against theirs. You can't prove it. You can have that bill of sale and maybe eBay will cover you and not suspend your account, but you're still going to give a refund to that customer, and now you're out of your money, you're done. So there's huge risk. Not to mention, when you meet customers, testing a phone is tough. Remember, we're not just looking at one thing. You gotta test the power button, the volume button, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, all the features, the buttons, the touchscreen, the charger port, the flashlight. You gotta test hundreds of things that could potentially be wrong, because you don't wanna buy a phone from somebody and ship it off, and all of a sudden you find out, oh my God, the Bluetooth wasn't working. The person that sold it to me may or may not have known, but the customer that got it on eBay now has a phone with no Bluetooth, and they're gonna ship it back. And again, you're issuing a refund, you're out your money. So a ton of risk on that side. Now let's talk about the biggest risk. So a lot of you that watch my channel regularly probably know that I openly and proudly carry a weapon every day. So the reason that I do is because of the cell phone industry. When I started advertising on Craigslist and Facebook marketplaces and Let Go and OfferUp and started buying phones, over the course of time, I started meeting, shadier and shadier people, for lack of a better word. Most of the phone calls I was getting were coming from bad parts of town. Most of the phone calls I was getting was from younger, 16 to 26-year-olds. Half the time they couldn't drive to me, they didn't have any money, they couldn't get to me, I had to go to them, they weren't able to meet me anywhere, they were walking. And the reason for this, and this is, don't take this any further than what I'm gonna say, is it's because most of these phones, and I'm not saying I bought stolen phones, I did my best to call them all in and check them, but most of the phones being offered on these marketplaces are stolen or frauded or just bad. And the reason is that I'm getting these calls from these lower income, not as well off people who don't even have the money to afford these phones. So how are they, selling it to me and selling it to me so cheap? Well, that's how. They probably found it or stole it. A lot of phones were found. I know that for a fact. They found it and, found it one way or the other. They found it at a basketball court, or they found it, somebody left it at the mall or at a restaurant. And so, I used to get a lot of bartenders who would call me, and after a week or two, no one would claim a phone. They'd have 4 or 5 phones. So it did happen, but a lot of these phones were just very, very shady. So I was meeting a lot of people and turning down a lot of phones, a lot of merchandise. And that's a really risky business on that side, but it also becomes risky because when you start meeting these people, they're desperate. And when you show up and a phone might be stolen, or your gut tells you no, and you walk away and they've met you expecting to get X amount of money, and you turn them down, they don't get happy about it. They're not happy at all, and it makes for a bad situation. And the other obvious, which you guys have probably seen 1,000 news stories on it, from dirt bikes to cell phones to tablets to furniture, is that when somebody knows you're showing up with $200 or $300 to buy a phone, they know you have cash, and there's a pretty good chance you have more, and maybe you have a phone, and they're just gonna set you up to rob you. And that's just as simple as I can make it. They show up, they meet you with a phone, their buddy comes up behind you and puts a gun to your head. I've seen it 1,000 times. I've seen people shot, I've seen people killed, I've heard of it, I've seen news stories. It's just not safe. And even going over your safest, I've seen somebody get shot outside of a CVS. I didn't see it happen, but I saw it on the news. Outside of a CVS during peak hours, they met to buy an iPhone. So many risky things, and that is the reason why I don't do what I did before. Now, there are other ways to buy cell phones. You can buy them from buyback companies like Greenstream International or Waste Management, or all these big cell phone companies do exist that deal in trade-ins. Gazelle, or Buy My Tronics, or And GameStop bought phones for a long time. And, you know, like Nextworth, who was Target's trade-in company, all these companies you can buy from, but they don't give you the margins to really make any money. You gotta have hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy from them, and you're gonna buy a phone for 10 bucks to sell for 20 or 25, when out on the street, because of the nature of the transaction, you're buying a phone for 50 to sell for 250. So there is definitely money to be made. There's definitely a ton of profit to be made, but I do not recommend it. And if you must and you insist on doing it, I recommend you carrying a weapon, protecting yourself, going through all the steps I've given on meeting people locally. You know, I prefer that you meet them at a police station, and just go about it the right way, and use your gut. Your gut's never wrong. Be cautious, be careful, check serial numbers, keep records, get people's IDs, get people's phone numbers, emails, addresses, as much information as you can. Just go and do your due diligence and really check these phones out, really know what you're doing. Same goes for any product that you buy, but especially cell phones. So with that said, I'll let you guys get back to your night. I appreciate you watching and listening to me ramble and rant, but I've had a lot of people recently asking about buying and selling cell phones. I highly urge and encourage you not to do it, but if you insist on doing it, just make sure you realize how risky it is to buy and sell and flip smartphones, cell phones, tablets, higher end electronics. Just be really careful. Same could go for like cameras like this, or camera lenses, all kinds. Electronics just breed really risky situations, so be careful. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, make sure you like it, share it, send it to your friends, send it to people you think might start selling phones to discourage them, because I don't recommend it. And really think about what you're doing. So thanks guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're almost to 50,000, hopefully by tomorrow, and we'll do the giveaways then. I'll see you guys next time.